Before you speak, think. Think is it true? T, is it true? H, is it helpful? I, is it inspiring? T, is it necessary? K, is it kind? Pencil and dream can take you anywhere. Alone we are smart, together we are brilliant. Be smart. Smart as you please and thank you. M, say please and thank you. M, make friends and be thoughtful. A, arrive on time, prepared and ready to learn. R, respect others and yourself. T, try the best. Creativity now is as important in education as literacy, and we should treat it with the same status. Cutting the deficit by gutting education is like lightning an overloaded airplane by removing its engine. Educate a boy and you educate an individual. Educate a girl and you educate a community. Educate breeds confidence. Educate breeds hope. Hope breeds peace. Education is learning from what you didn't know. You didn't know. You didn't even know you didn't know. Education is not complete unless we teach our children not only how to read and write, but the difference between right and wrong. Education is not the filling of the bell, but the lighting of a fire. Education is nothing more nor less than learning to think. Education is not to reform students or amuse them or to make them expert technicians. It is to unsettle their minds, widen their horizons, inflame their intellect, teach them to think straight if possible. Education is our passport to the future. Our tomorrow belongs to the people who prepare for it today. Education is the key to unlocking the world, a passport to freedom. Education is the key to unlock the golden door of freedom. Education is the kindling of a flame, not the filling of a vessel. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. Education is the process of selling someone on books. Education level is the playing field, allowing everyone to compete. Education's responsibility is to replace an empty mind with an open mind, establishing a lasting peace in the work of education. Excellence in education is when we do everything that we can to make sure they become everything that they can. For these are all our children. We will profit by or pay for whatever they become. God has price, but learning is priceless. Good schools, like good societies and good families, celebrate and cherish diversity. Groups give thoughtful feedback, respect each other on task, use the best effort, participate activities, speak softly. He who opens a school door closes a prison. If for years to come, if students don't feel the teacher's appreciation, their whole education has failed. If there's one thing educator can agree on, it is this: children do better in school when their parents get involved in their learning. If you're planning for a year, sow a rice. If you're planning for a decade, plant trees. If you're planning for a lifetime, educate people. If you can dream it, you can do it. If you want to be successful, it's just this simple. Know that what you're doing, love what you're doing, and believe in what you're doing. Intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education. It's easier to build the strong children than to repair the broken man. If it is foresighted to believe that people education comes from setting up schools and that exclude the very children needing the most help. It is easy to make a buck. It's not tougher to make a difference. Lot tougher. I want the little girl who told she's bossy to be told instead that she has leadership skills. Knowledge is not information, it's transformation. Knowledge overcomes ignorance as sunlight overcomes darkness. Let us think of education as the means of developing our greatest abilities, because in each of us there's a private hope and dream fulfilled can be translated into benefit for everyone and the greatest strength of the nation, making sure all of us students get a great education, find a career that's fulfilling and rewarding, and have a chance to live out their dreams wouldn't just make us a more successful country, it would also make us a more fair and just one. Most people are mirrors reflecting the moods and emotions of the times. Few are windows bringing light to bear on the dark corners where troubles fester. The whole purpose of education is to turn mirrors into windows. 9/10 of education is encouragement. Our children need to be treated as human beings, exquisite, complex, and elegant in their diversity. Our progress as a nation can be no swifter than our progress in education. The human mind is our fundamental resource. Please and thank you are still magical words. Rather than worrying about my students' standardized test scores, I care about the kind of people they will become. The school is building with 4 walls and tomorrow inside. The students who are loved at home come to school to learn, and students who aren't come to school to be loved. Teachers take pride in their work, be personal responsibility in delivering excellence. Teaching kids to count is fine, but teaching them what counts is best. Technology won't replace teachers, but teachers who use technology will probably replace teachers who don't. The difference between good school and life: in a school, we are taught to learn the lesson and then given tests. In life, you're given a test and teaches you a lesson. The dropout crisis is just the tip of the iceberg. What it doesn't count are all the kids who are in school and being disengaged from it. We don't enjoy, who don't get any real benefit from it. The function of education is to help you from childhood, not to imitate anybody, but to be yourself all the time. The function of education is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. Intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education. The hardest arithmetic to master is that which enables us to count our blessings. The kids in our classroom are infinitely more significant than the subject matter we teach. The object of education is to prepare the young to educate themselves throughout their lives. The only way to be totally free is through education. The purpose of education is to enlighten the student as to how to use their own mind rather than to fill it with facts for a test. The real role of leadership in education is not and should not be command and control. The real role of education is climate control, creating a climate of possibility. There's nothing in a caterpillar that tells it's going to be a butterfly. The secret of education is respecting the pupil. The true purpose of education is to teach a man to carry himself triumphant into the sunset. Through education comes understanding. Through understanding comes true appreciation. All children are artists. The problem is how to remain an artist once he grows up to be successful. The first thing to do is to fall in love with your work. To encourage literature and the arts is a duty with every good citizen owes to his country. Upon the subject of education, not presuming to dictate any plan or system, respecting it, I can only say that I view it as the most important subject which we as a people can be engaged in. Watch your thoughts, they become words. Watch your words, they become actions. Watch your actions, they become habits. Watch your habits, they become character. Watch your character, it becomes your destiny. What greater or better gift can we offer the Republic than to teach and instruct our youth? What scripture is to the block of a marble, education is to a human soul. When educating the mind of our youth, we must not forget to educate their hearts. When schools flourish, all flourishes. When the safety of America is treated, we will spend any amount of money. The real safety of our nation is preparing this next generation so that they can take over place in thinking and technology and democracy. Why are teachers told to differentiate their instruction but standardize their tests? You educate a man, you educate a man. You educate a woman, you educate a generation. Your mind is a garden, your thoughts are the seeds. You can grow flowers or you can grow weeds. If kids come to us from strong, healthy, functioning families, it makes our job easier. If they do not come to us from strong, healthy, functioning families, it makes our job more important. Teachers affect eternity. No one can tell where their influence stops. Teaching is not a lost art, but the regard for it is lost tradition. The man or woman who can make hard things easy is the educator. Students don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Children are like wet cement. Whatever falls on them makes an impression. The taste of a good teacher is not how many questions he can ask his pupils that they will answer readily, but how many questions he inspires them to ask him when he finds it hard to answer. Teaching kids is to count is fine, but teaching them what counts is best. Listen to the must not kids. Listen to the don'ts, listen to the shouldn'ts, the impossible and won'ts, listen to the never haves. Then listen close to me. Anything can happen, child, anything can be. The mediocre teacher tells, the good teacher explains, the superior teacher demonstrates. The great teacher inspires. Education is not a filling of a bell, but the lighting of a fire. If we teach today's student as we are taught yesterday, we rob them of tomorrow. Teaching is one profession that creates all other professions. The supreme art of the teacher to awaken joy in a creative expression and knowledge. A child cannot be taught by anyone who despises him, and a child cannot afford to be fooled. Education is not to reform students or to amuse them or make them experts, technicians. It is to unsettle their minds, widen their horizons, and flame their intellects, teach them to think straight if possible. If a child can't learn the way we teach, maybe we should teach the way they learn. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act but a habit. As a general rule, teachers teach more by what they are than what they say. Never do anything for the student that he and she is not capable of doing for himself. If you do, you will make him an educational cripple, a pedagogical paralytic. If kids come to us from strong, healthy, functioning families, it makes our job easier. If they do not come to us from strong, healthy, functioning families, it makes our job more important. A teacher works eternity. He can never tell you what influences stops. Teacher, I believe, are the most responsible and important members of society because their professional effort affects the fate of the earth. The dream begins most of the time with a teacher who believes in you, who tugs and pushes and leads you on to the next plateau, sometimes poking you with a sharp stick or truth. Teachers teach because they care. Teaching young people is what they do the best. It requires long hours and patience and care. Compassionate teachers fill the void left by working parents who aren't able to devote enough attention to their children. Teachers don't just teach. They can be vital personalities who help young people to mature, to understand the world and understand themselves. A good education consists of much more than useful facts and marketable skills. The future of the world is in my classroom today. The future of the potential for good or bad, several future presidents and learning from me today. So are the great writers of the next decade, and so are the so-called ordinary people who will make the decisions in a democracy. I must never forget, these same young people could be the thieves and the murderers of the future. Only a teacher, thank God, I have a calling. To the greatest profession of all, I must be vigilant every day, lest I lose one fragile opportunity to improve tomorrow. There's no word in the language I revere more than teacher. My heart sings when a kid refers to me as his teacher, and it always has. I've honored myself and the entire family of man by becoming a teacher. The mediocre teacher tells, the good teacher explains, the superior teacher demonstrates, the great teacher inspires. The art of teaching is the art of assisting discovery. If you plan for years, plant a seed. If for 10 years, plant a tree. For 100 years, teach the people. When you sow a seed once, you will reap a single harvest. When you sow the people, teach the people, you will reap 100 harvests. There's an old saying that the course of civilization is a race between catastrophe and education. In a democracy such as ours, we must make sure that education wins the race. Better than 1,000 days of diligent study is one day with a great teacher. The whole art of teaching is only the art of awakening the natural curiosity of young minds for the purpose of satisfying it afterwards. Information is the currency of democracy. Above all things, I hope the education of the common people will be attended to, convinced that on their good sense we may rely with more security for the preservation of a due degree of liberty. Anyone who stops learning is old, whether at 20 or 80. Anyone who keeps learning stays young. One looks back with appreciation to the brilliant teachers, but with gratitude to those who touched up a heart. Human feelings. The curriculum is so much necessary, raw material, but warmth is the vital element for the growing plant and for the soul of the child. Education is light, lack of it, darkness. Whoever first coined the phrase, "You are the wind beneath my wings," most assuredly was reflected in the sublime influence of a very special teacher. In a completely rational society, the best of us would be teachers and the rest of us would have to settle for something less. Be all that you can be. Find the future as a teacher. I like a teacher who gives you something to take home to think about besides homework. The dream begins with a teacher who believes in you, who tugs and pushes and leads you to the next plateau, sometimes poking you with a sharp stick called truth and teaching you cannot see the fruit of a day's work. It's invisible and remains so maybe for 20 years. Teaching creates all other professions. If a doctor, lawyer and dentist had 40 people in his office at one time, all of whom had different needs and some of whom didn't want to be there and were causing trouble, and the doctor, lawyer, dentist without assistance had to treat them all with professional excellence for 9 months, then he might have some conception of a classroom teacher's job. Modern cynics and skeptics have seen no harm in paying those to whom they entrust the minds of their children a smaller wage than is paid to those to whom they entrust the care of their plumbing. A teacher is one who makes himself progressively unnecessary. Good teaching is 1 foot preparation, 3 foot theatre. A teacher that is attempting to teach without inspiring the pupil with a desire to learn is hammering on cold iron. Most teachers have little control over school policy or curriculum or choice of text or a special placement for students, but most have a great deal of autonomy inside the classroom to a degree shared by only a few other occupations such as police work. Public education rests precariously on the skills and the virtue of the people at the bottom of the institutional pyramid. A teacher affects eternity. He can never tell where an influence stops. A good teacher is like a candle. It consumes itself to light the way for others. If you have knowledge, let others light the candles at it. A true teacher defends his pupil against his own personal influence. He inspires self-distrust. He guides their eyes from himself to the spirit that quickens him. He will have no disciple. A good teacher is a master of simplification and an enemy of simplism. We expect teachers to handle teenage pregnancy, substance abuse, and the failings of the family. Then we expect them to educate our children. Good teachers are costly, but bad teachers cost more. A mediocre teacher tells, a good teacher explains, a superior teacher demonstrates, the great teacher inspires. The best teacher is the one who suggests rather than dogmatizes and inspires its listeners with a wish to teach himself. A teacher's purpose is not to create students in his own image, but to develop students who can create their own image. What a teacher is more important than what he teaches. Teaching should be full of ideas instead of stuffed with facts. A cross-eyed teacher can keep twice the number of the children in order than any other because the pupils do not know who she's looking at. Teaching is leaving a vestige of oneself in the development of another, and surely the students is a bank where you can deposit your most precious treasures. Teachers who inspires know that teaching is like cultivating a garden, and those who would have nothing to do with thorns must never attempt to gather flowers. Teachers who inspire realize there will always be rocks in the road ahead of us. There will be stumbling blocks or stepping stone. It all depends on how we use them. Teaching is not a lost art, but the regard for it is a lost tradition. One looks back with appreciation to the brilliant teachers, but with gratitude to those who touched our human feelings. The curriculum is so much necessary raw material, but warmth is a vital element for the growing plant and for the soul of a child. A teacher's job is to take a bunch of the live wires and see what they are well grounded in. What a teacher writes on the blackboard of life can never be erased. The teacher who's indeed wise does not bid you to enter the house of his wisdom, but rather leads you to the threshold of your mind. Discover why life be a teacher. The task of excellent teacher is to stimulate apparently ordinary people to unusual efforts. The tough problem is not in identifying winners, it is making winners out of ordinary people. When you teach your son, you teach your son's son. The best teachers teach from the heart, not from the book. Average teacher explains complexity. The gifted teacher reveals simplicity. Often when I'm reading a good book, I stop and thank my teacher, that is, I used her, until she got me understood number. Teachers touch lives forever. To teach is to touch lives forever. Who dares to teach must never cease to learn. There are 3 good reasons to be a teacher: June, July, and August. A special true teacher is very wise and sees tomorrow in every child's eyes. A teacher should have a maximum authority and minimum power. To teach is to learn twice. The secret of teaching is to appear to have known all your life what you just learned this morning. Teachers touch the future. Don't try to fix the student, fix ourselves first. The good teacher makes the poor students good and the good student superior whenever students fail, as we teachers too have failed. The object of teaching a child is to enable him to get along without his teacher. Teaching is the only major occupation of man for which we have not yet developed tools that make an average person capable of competence and performance. In teaching, we rely on the naturals, the ones who somehow know how to teach. Teachers are expected to reach unattainable goals with inadequate tools. The miracle is that at times they accomplish this impossible task. The art of teaching is the art of assisting discovery. The only reason I always try to meet and know the parents better is because it helps me to forgive their children. If you promise not to believe everything your child says happens at school, I promise you not to believe everything he says happens at home. A teacher of eternity can never tell where his influence stops. What nobler employment or more valuable is to the state than that of the man who instructs the rising generation. The important thing is not so much that every child should be taught, as that every child should be given the wish to learn. Those who educate your children, we are more to be honored than parents, for these only gave life those the art of living well. What office is there which involves more personality, more responsibility, which requires more qualification, and which ought there to be more honorable than teaching? By learning we will teach. By teaching we will understand. Education is the mother of leadership. Seldom was any knowledge given to keep but to impart. The grace of this rich jewel is lost in concealment. If you would thoroughly know anything, teach it to others. We cannot hold a torch to light another's path without brightening its own. Our own grammar speaks, dialects teach us truth. Rhetoric gives coloring to our speech. Music sings arithmetic numbers, geometry, weighs and measures. Astronomy teaches us to know the stars. We learn by teaching. And in winning high renown by skills, that is the fruit of teaching. It is the supreme art of the teacher to awaken joy and creative expression and knowledge. You cannot teach a man anything, you can only help him find it within himself. The most effective teacher will always be biased, for the chief force in teaching is confidence and enthusiasm. It is a luxury to learn, but the luxury of learning is not to be compared with the luxury of teaching. Education is the guardian genius of democracy. It is the only dictator that free men recognize, and the only ruler that free men require whatever. You want to teach, be brave. To me, education is the least thing out of what is already there in the pupil's soul. 9/10 of education is an encouragement. The true aim of every one who aspires to be a teacher should be not impart his own opinions, but to kindle minds. He that teaches us anything which we know not before is undoubtedly to be reverenced as a master. To teach is a center of to learn. I hear and I forget, I see and I remember, I do and I understand from teaching. Be careful to leave your sons well instructed rather than rich, for the hopes of the instructed are better than the wealth of the ignorant. I'm indebted to my father for living, but to my teacher for living well. To know how to suggest is a great art of teaching. To attain it, we must be able to guess what will interest. We will learn to read the childish soul as we might a piece of music. Then, by simply changing the way we keep up the attraction, and it'll vary the song. Teaching is not the lost art, but the regard of it is a lost tradition. Education is transmission of civilization. To teach is to learn twice over. A schoolmaster should have an atmosphere of awe and wonderingly, and if he was amazed at being himself, as if he was amazed at being himself. A child miseducated is a child lost. A master can tell you what he expects of you. A teacher, though, awakens your expectations. Spoon feeding is in the long run teaches us nothing but the shape of the spoon. The secret of teaching is to appear to have known all your life that you have learned this afternoon. We can teach from experience, but we cannot teach experience. A teacher is the one who makes himself progressively unnecessary. I like a teacher who gives you something to take home to think besides homework. To teach is to learn twice over. It is the supreme art of a teacher to awaken joy in creative expression and knowledge. A teacher of fixed eternity, he can never tell where his influence stops. A teacher who is indeed wise does not bid you to enter the house of his wisdom, but rather leads you to the threshold of your mind. The art of teaching is the art of assisting discovery. I am not a teacher, but an awakener. Don't try to fix the students, fix ourselves first. The good teacher makes the poor students good and the good students superior. When our students fail, we as teachers too have failed. There are three things to remember when teaching. Know your stuff. Know whom you are stuffing and then stuff them elegantly. The mediocre teacher tells, the good teacher explains, the superior teacher demonstrates, the great teacher inspires. The average teacher explains complexity, the gifted teacher reveals simplicity. A good teacher is like a candle, it consumes itself to light the way of others. A teacher affects eternity, you can never tell where his influence stops. Be not angry that you cannot make others as you wish them to be, since you cannot make yourself as you wish to be. The true aim of everyone who aspires to be a teacher should be not to impart his own opinions, but to kindle minds. The mind is not a vessel to be filled, but a fire to be ignited to know how. To suggest is the great art of teaching. You can pay people to teach, but can't pay them to care. A teacher affects eternity. He can never tell where his influence stops. He who dares to teach must never cease to learn. You cannot teach a crab to walk straight. I never teach my pupils. I only attempt to provide the condition in which they can learn. Ideal teachers are those who use themselves as bridge over which they invite their students to cross. Then, having facilitated their crossing, joyfully collapse, encourage them to create bridges of their own. Sometimes one man with courageous majority. Thoughts flow in terms of stories about events, stories about people, and stories about intentions, achievements. The best teachers are the best storytellers. We learn to form the stories. Good teaching is more a giving of right questions than of giving right answers. To teach is to learn twice. Time is a great teacher, but unfortunately it killed all its pupils. And teachers who inspire know that teaching is like cultivating a garden, and those who would have nothing to do with thorns must never attempt to gather flowers. Ye great teachers, listen to what they say, what you say. Teaching should be full of ideas instead of stuffed with facts. A man should first direct himself in the way he should go, only then should he instruct others. A teacher who is indeed wise does not bid you to enter the house of wisdom, but rather leads you to the threshold of your mind. Treat people as if they were what they ought to be, and you help them become what they are capable of becoming. A test teacher teaches from the heart, not from the book. A teacher who is attempting to teach without inspiring the pupil to desire to learn is happening on a cold iron. Give me a fish and I eat a day. Teach me to fish and I eat a lifetime. The teachers who get burned out are not the ones who are constantly learning, which can be exhilarating, but those who feel they must stay in control and ahead of the students of all times. Be an opener of doors for such as come after thee. The true teacher defends his pupil against his own personal influence. The teacher should guide without dictating and participate without dominating. For every person who wants to teach, there are approximately 30 people who want to learn much. The most important knowledge teachers need to do good work is a knowledge of how students are experiencing, learning, and perceiving teachers' actions. You can't direct the wind, but you can adjust the sails. Everything should be made as simple as possible, but not simpler. There's no teaching until the pupil is brought into the same state or principle in which you are. A transfusion takes place. He is you and you are he. Then he's teaching. Then is a teaching, and no unfriendly chance or bad company can he ever lose a benefit. Learning without thinking is the level lost. Thinking without learning is dangerous. Education is what survives when what has been learned has been forgotten. A positive learning climate in a school for young children is to compose for many things. It is an attitude that respects the children. It's the place where children receive guidance and encouragement from the responsible adults around them. It is an environment where children can experiment and try out new ideas without fear of failure. It is an atmosphere that builds the children's self-confidence so that they dare to take risks. It is an environment that nurtures the love of learning. Learning starts with failure. The first failure is the beginning of education. Our task regarding creativity is to help children climb their own mountains as high as possible. No one can do more. 1,000 teachers and 1,000 methods. No one should teach who is not in love with teaching. Education costs money, but then so does ignorance. Education is improving the lives of others for leaving your community and world better than you found it. Learning is ever in the freshness of its youth, ever for the old. Even for the old, the love of learning, the sequestered nooks and all the sweet serenity of books. Learning is like rowing upstream, not to advance, is to drop back. Learning is a treasure that accompanies its owner everywhere. The best learners often make the worst teachers. They are, in a very real sense, perceptually challenged. They cannot imagine what it must be like to struggle to learn something that comes so naturally to them. We do not teach math, history, science, or grammar. We teach students, creatures whose mainspring is curiosity, will enjoy the accumulating of fact far more than the pausing at times to reflect on those facts. One looks back with appreciation to the brilliant teachers, but with gratitude to those who touched our human feelings. The curriculum is so much necessary form material, but warmth is a vital element for the growing plant and for the soul of the child. No one should teach who is not in love with teaching. Try to be one of the people on whom nothing is lost. Education is about the only thing lying around loose in the world, and it's about the only thing a fellow can have as much as he is willing to haul away. Learning is a kind of natural food for the mind. Early education can only promise you to help make the third and the fourth and the fifth years of life good ones. It cannot ensure without fail that any tomorrow will be successful. Nothing fixes a child for life, no matter what happens next. But exciting, pleasing, early experiences that seldom slot off. They go with the child going to the first grade on into the child's long life ahead. We all adults learners. Most of us have learned a good deal more out of school than in it. We have learned from our families, our work, our friends. We have learned from problems resolved and tasks achieved, but also from mistakes confronted and illusions unmasked. Some of what we have learned is trivial. Some have changed our lives forever. If a doctor, lawyer, and dentist had 40 people in his office at one time, all of whom had different needs and some of whom didn't want to be there and were causing trouble, and the doctor, lawyer, and dentist without assistant had to treat them all with professional excellence for 9 months, then he might have some conception of a classroom's teacher's job. It is a great work to educate a child. It is true and largest sense in the world than to rule its state. What a teacher is more important than what he teaches. As with all great teachers, his curriculum was an insignificant part of what he communicated. From him, you didn't learn a subject, but a life, tolerance and justice, fearlessness and pride, reverence and pity are learned in a course on long division. If the teacher has those qualities, people may talk about intellectual teaching, but what we principally want is a moral teaching. It is the most important part of teaching equals to teach what is to know. The whole of art of teaching is only the art of awakening the natural curiosity of young minds for the purpose of satisfying it afterwards, and curiosity itself can be vivid and wholesome only in proportion as the mind is contented and happy. For good teaching rests neither in accumulating a shelf full of knowledge nor in developing the repertoire of skills. In the end, good teaching lies in the willingness to attend and care for what happens in our students, ourselves, and the space between us. Good teaching is a certain kind of stance. I think it is a stance of receptivity, of attunement, and listening. Many may my teaching drop like a rain and speech condense like a dew, like gentle rain in grass, like showers of new growth. Learning and teaching should not stand on opposite banks and just water the river flow by. Instead, they should embark together on a journey down the water. Though we, through an active, reciprocal exchange, teaching can strengthen learning how to learn. Education is painful, continual, and difficult work to be done in kindness. by watching, by warning, by praise, but above all by example. The job of an educator is to teach students to see the vitality in themselves. There are two kinds of teachers: the kind who fills you with so much quell, short that you can't move, and the kind that just gives you a little prod behind and you jump to the skies. The greatest sign of education for a teacher is to be able to say, the children are not working as if I did not exist. Education is not to reform students or amuse them or make them expert technician. It is to unsettle their minds, widen their horizons, inflame their intellects, teach them to think straight if possible. It's important that students bring a certain ragamuffin, barefoot irreverence to their minds, to their studies. They are not here to worship what is known, but to question it. Teaching kids to count is fine, but teaching them what counts is best. Tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn. Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, you will live its whole life believing that it was stupid. The important thing in life is not to jump, but to struggle. Creativity is especially expressed in the ability to make connection, to make associations, to turn things around and express them in a new way. Always to see the general in a particular is the very foundation of genius. Stay committed to your decisions, but stay flexible in your approach. They may forget what you say, but they will never forget how you made them feel. Treat people as if they were what they ought to be, and you help them become what they are capable of becoming. Every earth has four corners. As a teacher, I give you one corner, and it is for you to find the other three. Good teaching is more of giving of right questions than of giving right answers. Read not to contradict and confuse. Not to believe and take for granted, but to weigh and consider what the potential artists in our children come to life, that they may surmount industrial monotonies and pressures. Come forth into the light of things. Let nature be your teacher. Need a little pep in your step, a smile on your face, or just something that makes you want to get them tiger. Here are some of the favorite inspirational teachers, what they ought to be, and help them become what they are capable of becoming. Every youth has four corners. As a teacher, I give you one corner, and it is for you to find the other three. Learning is finding out what you already know. Dying is demonstrating that you know it. Teaching is reminding that others that they know just as well as you. You, without inspiring the pupil with a desire to learn, is hammering on cold iron. The great end of education is discipline rather than to furnish the mind, to train it, to lived in, to remember, involve me, and I learn. It is not what is poured into a student that counts, but what is planted. It is the supreme art of a teacher to awaken by joy and to create him the joy, the excitement, and the mystery of the world we live in. Education is not the filling of the bell, but the lighting of fire. Don't limit yourself. Many people limit themselves to what they think they can do. They can go far. As your greatness sign of success for a teacher is to be able to say, the children are not working as if I did not exist. Don't follow your dreams, chase them. The unselfish effort to bring cheer to others will be in the beginning of a happier life for ourselves. You have not lived until you have done something for someone who can never repay you. The miracle is this: the more we share, the more we have. The purpose of life is not to be happy, but to matter, to be productive, to be useful, to have it make some difference, that you have lived it all. Real success is finding your life work in the work that you love. The best way to predict your future is to create it. Education costs money, but then so ignorance. Learning is not a tender chance, it must be sought for with ardor and diligence. Never be afraid to try something new. Remember, amateurs built the ark, but professionals built the Titanic. He who opens a school door closes a prison. The hunter who chases two rabbits will catch neither. Treat people as if they ought to be, and you help them become what they are capable of becoming. Optimism is the faith that leads to achievement. Nothing can be done without hope and confidence. Children have to be educated, but they have also to be left to educate themselves. We should not teach children the sciences, but give them the test for them. It is only tool you have his hammer, you tend to see every problem as a nail. Aim for success, not perfection. Never give up your right to be wrong, because then you will lose the ability to learn new things and move forward with your life. Remember that fear always lurks behind perfectionism. People learn something every day, and a lot of times it's that what they learned the day before was wrong. Education is better safeguard of liberty than a standing army. Why should society feel responsible only for education of children and not for the education of adults? All adults of every age. Give me a fruitful error any time, full of seeds bursting with its own corrections. You can keep your sterile truth for yourself. It's important that students bring a certain ragamuffin, barefoot irreverence to their studies. They are not here to worship what is known, but to question it. All the world is a laboratory in an inquiring mind. Don't limit yourself. Many people limit themselves so that to what they think they can do. You can go as far as your mind lets you, what you believe you can achieve. Each man must look to himself to teach him the meaning of life. It's not something discovered, it is something molded. Never doubt that a small drop of thoughtful, committed citizens can help change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. Learning is a treasure that will follow its owner everywhere. Education is what survives when what has been learned has been forgotten. Learning is not attained by chance. It must be sought for with order and attended with diligence. Learning never exhausts the mind. The learning process is different for each individual. Here, these great thinkers muse on what learning means to them, these inspirational quotes. Develop passion for learning. If you do, you will never cease to grow, no matter how he may think himself accomplished. When he sets out to learn a new language, science, or a bicycle, he has entered a new realm as truly as he were a child newly born into the world. I would like to learn to remember how to live. I'm not afraid of storms, for I'm learning to sail my ship. If the Romans had been obliged to learn Latin, they would never have found time to conquer the world. Whoever ceases to be a student has never been a student. The only real failure in life is not learned from. Whoso neglects learning in his youth loses the past and is dead for the future. I would rather entertain and hope that people learn something than educate people and hope that they were entertained. Learning without thought is the level lost. Thought without learning is perilous. All to the top of all of the top achievers I know are lifelong learners, looking for new skills, insights, and ideas. If they are not learning, they are not growing and not moving toward excellence. All things good to know are difficult to learn. We learn more by looking for the answers to a question and not finding them than we do by learning from the answers itself. Life is a series of experiences, each one of which makes us bigger, even though sometimes it is hard to realize this, for the world was built to develop character, and we must learn that setbacks and griefs which we endure help us in our marching onward. One's mind, once stretched by a new idea, never regains its original dimension. You learn something every day if you pay attention. Sit down before fact as a little child. Be prepared to give up every conceived notion. Follow humbly wherever whatever absences nature leaves, or you will learn nothing. There are many things which we can afford to forget, which is yet well to learn. Beware of the man who works hard to learn something, learns it, and finds himself no wiser than before. You have learned something that always feels at first as if you had lost something. Every act of conscious learning requires the willingness to suffer an injury of one's self-esteem. That is why young children, before they are aware of their own self-importance, learn to so easily. People learn something every day, and a lot of the times is that what they learned the day before was wrong. Always do what you are afraid to do. Anyone who stops learning is old, whether at 20 or 80. Anyone who keeps learning stays young. A turtle makes progress when it sticks the snake out. Believe in yourself, be strong, never give up, no matter what the circumstances are. You're the champion and will overcome the dreaded obstacles. Champions take failure as a learning opportunity, so take in all you can and run with it. Be your best and don't ever give up. Did you know that the Chinese symbol for crisis includes a symbol which means opportunity? Don't learn to do, but learn. Don't learn to do, but learn in doing. Let your falls not be prepared ground, but let them be bona fide falls in the rough and tumble of the world. Aha! Every artist was at first an amateur. I hear and I forget, I see and I remember, I do and I understand. If you always do what you're always done, you'll always get what you've always got. If you find yourself saying, but I can't speak English, try adding a word yet. If what we are doing isn't working, try something else. If you think education is experience, try ignorance. If you know what you want, you are more likely to get it. If it had long since come to my attention that people of accomplishment rarely sit back and let things happen to them. They went out and made things happen. It's not just about looking and copying, it's about feeling too. It's okay to try things out, to ask questions, to feel unsure, to let your mind wander, to daydream and to ask for help, to experiment, to take time out, not to know, to practice and to ask for help again and again, to make mistakes, to check your understanding. Learning is never done without errors and defeat. Nothing can ever imagine is beyond our powers, only beyond our present self-knowledge. One of the greatest discoveries is man makes. One of his great surprises is to find he can do what he was afraid he could not do. One must have strategies to execute dreams. One must learn by doing the thing, for though you think you know it, you have no certainty unless you try. People learn more quickly by doing something or seeing something done. Success comes in cans, failure in cans. The important thing in life is not the triumph, but the struggle. Teachers open the doors, but you must enter by yourself. Too much credit is given to the entrance of the true lesson is in the struggle makes place between the dream and reality. That struggle is the thing called life. The more I want to get something done, the less I call it work. The only dreams impossible to reach are the ones you never pursue. There are two types of people, they can do and can't. Which are you? Whenever you feel like saying yes, but try saying instead yes and. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are right. Worry is misuse of the imagination. You haven't failed until you stop trying. You have got to accent to create the positive, eliminate the negative, latch into the affirmative. Don't mess with the mister in the between. Teacher affects eternity. He can never tell with his empty staff. So liberal education is the heart of civil society, but at the heart of the liberal education is the act of teaching. Ideal teachers are those who use themselves as bridges over which they invite their students to cross, then having facilitated their crossing, joyfully collapse, encouraging them to create bridges of their own. Good teaching is 1/4 preparation, 3/4 pure theatre. Learning is finding out what we already know. Doing is demonstrating what you know. Teaching is reminding others that they know just as well as you. You are the learners, doers, and the teachers. Much education today is monumentally ineffective. All too often we are giving young people cut flowers when we should be teaching them how to grow their own plants. A teacher who can arouse a feeling of for one single good action, for one single good poem accomplishes more than he can fill the out memory with rows and rows of the natural objects classified with name or norm. I like a teacher who gives you something and takes on the thing besides homework. Thought flows in terms of stories about events, stories about people, stories about intentions and achievements. The best teachers are the best storytellers. We learn in the form of stories. Time is a great teacher, but unfortunately it kills all its pupils. Once children learn how to learn, nothing is going to narrow their mind. The sense of teaching is to make learning contagious, to have one idea spark another. Good teachers are those who know how little they know, but bad teachers are those who think they know more than they don't know. A teacher who's attempting to teach without inspiring the people with a desire to learn is hammering on cold iron. Experience is a hard teacher because she gives you the test first and lesson afterward. They may forget what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. Teachers open the doors, but you must enter by yourself. Wow. So beautiful storytelling. Oh my God, this is my greatest dream, to say stories. When Kush was little, I used to tell him a story because, and oh my God, it's so pretty, and I continued, and then he tells me, oh, can you tell me your stories? And I said, what stories? I say, oh, about your life, everything about you. You tell me in stories. So I told him a story about my sister and cousin, and he loved it so much. Every day he says, oh, I want to hear those same stories, on the same subject and everything. So I continued on and on and on and on for 6 months straight. Every day a new story, and he would be so happy. I mean, so engrossed, and I enjoyed and everything and all this thing. And then end of 6 months, I said, Kush, I'm done. There are no more stories on this one subject between the cousin and sister. And next day I come from work, and the whole living room is full of children. Since we are living in Metropolis Towers, 2 buildings, 23 stories, all the children are there. And I'm like, what is going on? He says, Mommy, I told all of them we're gonna share the stories of Mana Vimal. And I say, oh my God. So I started. But since Kush knew all the stories, I didn't want him to be bored or, any repetitions for him. So started putting some spices in it, and he loved it, and everybody loved it. And another 6 months went by. Now more and more children started coming for the stories. It's like it was impossible, and it became like the regular routine. Come from work, and house full of children, and you tell them the stories. But this time we added more spices, since we have become the professional storytellers. It was fun. Year and a half later, my son is going to India with his brother, half brother. And guess what? Mana comes to pick him up on the airport. And he says, Kush, you don't know me. I'm Mummy's cousin, Mana. I know everything. I know all about you and Vima. He's like, his wife is, Kush, tell me, whatever. So, it brought so much, I was in a big time trouble, because the next day, both Vima and Mana calling me, one after the other, like non-stop. I cannot work. The phone calls keep coming, overlapping each other. What stories have you been telling, Kush? And I'm like, no, not only Kush, it's like everybody knows. And the more I speak, the more I'm getting myself in trouble. Lord, it came to a point, I said, I better stop telling stories. And I stopped saying stories until this very minute. Let's see if we can start once again, okay? So we're just going to read out the stories and see if we still have that that fun moments. Oh my God, I cannot wait to get started. How about Dada Vaswani's book of stories, 100 stories you'll never forget, okay? Love you, God.